Welcome to Charity Therapy, the podcast where we explore the ups and downs of the nonprofit sector and answer your burning questions. I'm your host, Jess Birken, owner of Birken Law Office, and I'm excited you're here. Imagine hanging out with me and my super smart, funny nonprofit expert pals. You get to ask them anything about your nitty-gritty nonprofit life and get their wisdom for free. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just strapping on your nonprofit boots, we're here to share stories and remind you you're not alone on this journey. So get ready to join the conversation and bring me the tough questions. I ain't scared. Ready to rock? Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Charity Therapy. I've got Megan here for you to answer some non-profity type questions. Megan?
Hey, Jess. Happy to be here, always with the non-profity questions.
I know that's like our entire existence.
I know, right?
Even when I'm not at work, I have to stop myself from sending you things.
It plagues you.
Related to the non-profity questions.
Just schedule those. I'm more than happy to see them. Just maybe not at like 11 p.m. We got to work on you turning off that non-profity brain after work hours a little bit.
It's an addiction.
Nonprofit addiction. Okay, well, today we are talking about some stuff that's not just nonprofity, actually. Definitely nonprofity, but not exclusively. So for the listeners, for you to know, Birken Law has grown a lot in the past year and a half. Not too long ago, it was just me and Jess holding down the fort and doing all of the things, right?
Oh, the good old days.
Both feels like forever ago and not that long ago at the same time. About a year and a half, 2 years ago, there were two of us. And since then, it has grown to 7. We had our 7th person start yesterday. And in the scheme of bigger businesses, adding 5 people to your team doesn't really seem like that big of a deal. But like we more than tripled our team in that time. Like it's absolutely crazy.
Dude, yes. It's a lot to go from managing 1 to managing 6.
Yes.
Let me just say.
So today, Jess, since we're in the thick of that, we're going to answer a question from a nonprofit professional who's going through that same kind of a thing. But first, before we get into that, as a boss and a small business owner, what would you say is the most important thing to consider when you're adding people to an already small team?
One thing?
Just one.
It's such a big undertaking. It's so great, right? But there's also more, like way more than one thing that I could say. So I don't know if I can just do one. First, and I think this has revealed itself in the middle of our growing things, but setting your organizational culture and like consciously deciding what you want your organizational culture to be is probably the number one thing. Like if I could go back and change things, I would have had the prescient vision of like how important that would be, because it's super important when you're hiring and growing your team, especially when it's so small that like one person can really like sway what the culture is. Every person that you bring in needs to sort of like fit your core values. So that's just huge. And then if I can do a second one, I think just like remembering that no matter how great your like new people are, the things that might have worked before for a team of 1 or 2 or 3 just aren't going to work for a bigger team. And you're going to have to change the way you do things to fit the bigger group dynamic. There's just no way around that. And it's sort of a painful growing experience. And I think I have more to say about all of that.
Really?
Obviously, but hopefully we will get to some of that in the question because I could launch into a 2-hour spiel right now.
Definitely. Don't worry. I will ask the question and then we will welcome the spiel. So,
okay.
First, let's just get into what this listener has to say. So they wrote and said, I work at a relatively new faith-based social services ministry nonprofit. Everyone is super nice and supportive, but leadership has exactly 0 experience in management or operations. Not uncommon for nonprofits.
Yeah, right.
Roles are not well defined. Our executive director has their hands in pretty much everything. Meetings have no agendas or action items. It's unclear what our KPIs are besides a vague number of people that we've helped. We don't even have a basic project tracking spreadsheet or to-do list. So literally everything takes place via email.
Dear Lord.
I know, right? We're all just doing things and chasing squirrels all day, every day. We're about to massively increase our staff, and it's going to be a disaster if we do things the way they've always been done. Ding, 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 ding,
Yup.
ding. How do other organizations track their work?
All right. The thing that pops out as like oh my God, is that everything happens in the inbox for everyone. Like that literally makes my brain just hurt.
I think everyone listening had the cold pit in their stomachs of just oh no, that's a nightmare.
It is because you have to have a project management system and a place to talk internally that isn't email. Once you get beyond two people and you're not just leaning over the desk to ask that person something, you have to have a mechanism for internal communications. It's so important. And project management, obviously, super important.
There's no amount of Outlook rules and folders and whatever that will work to make your entire management system happen within everybody's inboxes. You can't see other people's inboxes. You don't know what's going on. Just the sheer amount of time being wasted on sorting and searching through emails is makes me sad.
Well, and just fundamentally, the nature of an inbox is whatever is at the top is the most urgent thing. And you and I know this better than anybody. You're just literally living at the end of the fire hose, and whatever is being sprayed into your inbox right now becomes your top priority. And you have no tether to the universe to say, that's not my most important priority right now, because your system basically says this is your top priority because it's literally on the top of your inbox.
Exactly. And you also get used to those old emails that just kind of clutter up the bottom of your inbox, that it's some of those might have important things in them, but you've become so blind to them because you're focusing on everything else that they never get dealt with. So you have this nagging bad feeling of there's probably something in there that I am not handling, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah, no, the creeping dread of I don't know where all the things are has such a psychic toll.
It's so bad
that you don't even realize it's putting that much toll on you until you do something differently and lift it. Mm-hmm. I can just totally relate to this struggle. I mean, as we already talked about, we've learned firsthand, right, that what works for two people just does not scale. And I think one of the things that was a blessing for you and I is that we've always had external teammates. And so that pushed us into using Slack for internal communications probably a lot sooner than we would have otherwise. And I think using something for internal communications, whether that's Microsoft Teams, which is trying to be like Slack now, or Slack or something like that, is key. Because once you leave two people or one ED in the board, it just doesn't scale. It just doesn't. And you can't expect everybody to join into your email chains and expect that to be a system and have it work. And I'm sorry, but people putting in a lot of effort and good intentions and being kind, that's great. But that's also not a functional system. And it's not something that's going to just automatically create a good culture at the organization. So I can definitely just make a few suggestions here. I think we could probably spend an hour talking on each one. I do continuing ed for lawyers about some of these topics. Easy to talk about even one of these things for a whole hour. But just off the top of my head, looking at their question, first things first, everybody needs to have a clearly defined job description. And I think you and I have lived through this where it's what we said your job description was a year ago, 6 months ago, may not actually be accurate to what you're doing today. And as we've grown and added people and they've expanded their capacities, it's you need to have a job description that is clear and doesn't just have other duties as assigned as this catch-all dumping ground for what they do. And part of the reason for that is because you need to know what they do so you can document it and be able to train the next person, because to think that you're never going to have turnover is crazy town. So it's just starting out and documenting what people's roles are and what they actually do is really, really important.
Yes. And we've lived through this a lot
Literally right now.
And I started at Birken Law, little fun fact, as an intern at 10 hours a week many years ago.
Sure did.
And my job just sort of like naturally evolved and grew. So it's like, it's not that the job description shouldn't change over time. Like, that is a natural function, especially for a growing team, that it's like, oh, shoot, no one's handling this. We need to add this to somebody's plate, whatever. That's super normal. But it's also really important to sit down periodically and say, like, is this what I'm doing? What does this not reflect? And be able to add that, because that is how you also discover someone is way overloaded of like, oh, wow, we have,
Yeah.
87 different tasks on this person's job.
Also relevant to you, Megan.
Yes, also very relevant to me. Of just like, oh, wait, they're doing that too. And like, that is not going to work for the long term. So I think that's really helpful.
Yeah. Or like, this is something that you're supposed to do that you don't do because we automated it away, or we delegated it because you didn't enjoy doing that. Or like, there's just change that happens. And especially at a squishier, smaller organization where everybody's doing everything, it's just really important.
Right.
The other thing I'm seeing here is they said the EDs got their hand in everything, and this person needs to learn to delegate. The whole point of having other people help you is that you don't do everything.
And Jess and I can both relate to this hardcore because we are perfectionists at times. And it's like,
yeah,
the running joke at Birken Law Office is Jess has a lot of vision. She knows how things need to be done. She like has a clear picture of what she wants, but it's not always the best use of her time to make that happen. Like, we need to be able to feel okay giving the work to somebody else and letting that go, even if it's not done exactly the way that you would have done it necessarily. Like, it doesn't mean that it's bad. It's like, develop your standards, develop what you want for the work product, and you have to be able to let somebody else in.
Well, and I also kind of wonder, obviously there's a lot of information we don't have about this ED.
Absolutely.
But let's just give them the benefit of the doubt. And I would kind of expect that when you have no system, then the ED feels like they have to have their hand in everything, because how could you possibly know what's going on or where anything is in progress unless you are touching it yourself all the time? So like, that lack of having a project management system or any way to make the work visible is perpetuating the ED feeling that creeping dread of like, something's about to drop and I don't know what it is. And so I have to have my hands in everything because I have to know where everything is. Well, no, you don't. You need to make everyone's work visible in some way, right? So like, you need to make it so that you can see where everybody's work is being applied and what the state of those things are. Where is that grant application in process, right? Like, you don't need to have your hand in it. You need to know what your team is doing and where it is. So at a glance, you go, oh, okay. And just having things be visible to everyone is such a relief. So like, for me, and I think you agree because you are here and part of the process, like, we use Agile, right? And so we use a Kanban board, and that's like a to-do, doing, done system, which is like, obviously we make it more complicated than that, but it's like, where is everything at? And everybody has their to-do items on the list, and we can see where everything is. So you have to find some way to show what work needs to be done. If you don't know what Agile is, you don't know what Kanban is, you can Google those things. And there's like lots of other project management forms and systems. But the point is that you need something, a CRM, a customer relationship management software for your donors. You need a project management system for your work projects. You need something to show where your stuff is. And it can't just all be like, it's in the inbox.
And I think like project management system sounds so overwhelming. Like, what does that actually mean? Like, that is some big buzzword, but it's like,
yes,
get a free Trello account to start. Just something. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect,
Asana.
Something easy that makes sense to you. Don't go crazy and get like a Salesforce account and think that everything is going to go into Salesforce.
No, oh my God. Thank you for bringing that up. Do not get a free Salesforce account just because it's free for nonprofits. Yes, that is a system, but you need a highly paid consultant to make it work.
Yes.
Please listen to Megan.
Go get something that you understand that's easy to use.
Bless you, Megan.
That you can easily teach your team members. Because that's the biggest thing. You can spend time and effort and money on all of these systems, but if people don't understand how to use them, you're not getting anywhere.
Yeah.
So you need to figure out what makes sense, and you can make it the simplest version for now and let it grow over time. That's what we did. We've been through multiple forms of Kanban where it used to be very simple and now is many, many columns long. But we didn't start there. It takes time to build up like, oh, this isn't quite working. So let's change our process a little bit here and tweak that.
Yes. Literal Post-it notes on a whiteboard. That is how we started.
Yes.
Also, were you here when I was using that project management system, Yikes?
Yes, we used it for like a hot second.
So to your point about like, if people can't understand it, I'm like the tech gadget person. I'm like, ooh, let's try a new thing. So I try this project management tool, and both my like 22-year-old executive assistant, shout out to Alicia Aubrey, wherever you are, love you, and my like 50-year-old project coordinator from a big client I was working with, neither of them could understand this tool.
Yep.
And I thought, you know what? If the 20-something and the 50-something both can't figure this out, this is not the right system for me. It needs to be intuitive and easy to use. So I love that you bring that up, because I abandoned that thing so fast. I think I still have a freaking integrated calendar and Outlook from that, because I just won't die. And even though I've like uninstalled it 1,000 times.
Haunted by the ghost of Yikes forever.
But it has to be, the ghost of Yikes is haunting my inbox. I don't know. My Life, the musical, there is apparently a section for that song.
Yeah, great.
But it's so, so important that it's just simple. So don't just get some big expensive thing because it's free for nonprofits if you show your tax ID determination letter.
Yeah.
Literal Post-it notes is better than something that's overly complicated, because you won't use it. That's the thing. And the point is to use it and get out of your inbox. And that already is going to be hard because you're already using that as your system. And so you're already going to have to ask people to change the way they're doing it. So don't have people jump out of what's horrible, but they're comfortable with, into something that's horrible and confusing.
Exactly. It has to be up in one direction, right? It has to be progress in some way. And obviously, it is going to be a rough transition. We've gone through many project management transitions over the almost 7 years, which is wild, that I've worked at Birken Law. And so it's not easy. I don't think either of us are saying this as a like, get it together. It's so easy. Like, you can just do this. It's like, no, it will be kind of tricky at first, but I promise it will be better on the other end of it.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I've got some notes for you, because that was just, we got on our like project management like soapboxes there. We're both nerds about this, but yes, I have some notes about this. So first I will say, no matter what the situation is with your project management at your nonprofit and with your growing team, we have to think about why we're doing all of this, right? And like what the outcome is. So no matter what you do, keep your culture of the nonprofit front of mind. Culture doesn't just happen, when you're paying attention to it. It's happening all the time as you're adding new team members. So
yes,
make sure that you keep an eye on that. And then the second biggest one is that in order to grow in a way that makes sense for everybody, we need systems that everyone can use to be able to track their work. And that does not mean just a really messy inbox.
Yeah.
And along with that, whatever system you choose, whatever project management philosophy you decide to go with, whatever, the most important thing is that it is easy and intuitive to use for everybody. You don't want something that is so complicated that people just bail right away.
Yeah. Adoption is everything, right? Really, with all of these things, the overarching thing is getting people to engaging in meaningfully setting a culture, engaging in managing projects, not through an inbox, engaging in figuring out what are the KPIs we should be measuring, engaging in that work and like tracking it. You can like do all of the things in your mind, but if you can't get everybody's buy-in, it's over. And that's how small nonprofits go out of business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I feel like this kind of comes up in the question just a little bit, but I think sometimes that people can resent the fact that new people can't just like catch on, like why do we have to do all of these extra things? Like maybe they're just not a good fit, whatever. Like that sort of like you're not
Yes,
working
yes,
hard
yes,
enough if
yes.
you can't understand our insane convoluted email chain kind of a thing.
No, the struggle is real though. Like one of our core values is make it
Absolutely.
easy because we have to remember like, oh yeah, this is like super
Mhm.
advanced baseball and I have to break this down and make this digestible for someone who doesn't already know our secret coded language of zaps and acronyms.
And I just think in nonprofits, especially, there's a certain like kind of badge of honor of like, I'm just going to work extra hard and we're not going to do this in the smartest way, but we're going to do it in the hardest way so that we show our
The most
dedication. Yeah.
passionate
And
way.
it's just like,
Yeah.
no, let's throw that away and focus on like building a really great team that can do really great work because you've invested some time and energy into making a good system.
Yeah, absolutely. And the flip of that is also throwing away the thought that that makes you corporate
Yes.
or that that is too much of the business sector. It's like, no, this is a way you consciously cultivate a culture that fits who you are and your mission and make sure that new people are brought into your world in a way that is helpful and healthy and productive and achieves your mission. Right? It's not a bunch of corporate shenanigans.
Yes.
Just need to put that out there for the people listening who are like, don't be like businesses.
Yeah. I wish we could have recorded that and had us watch it before we had our core values and we thought that values were corporate BS as well. So like if only we could have gotten that message
Right. Exactly.
4 years ago or whatever, but
I know.
we all live and learn.
People were trying to beat it into my head. I just wasn't ready to receive it.
Yeah.
So maybe y'all out there are ready to receive that message
Yep.
right now, today. Well, Megan, you're amazing. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for 7 years. Is that real? That's insane.
I know. Oh, no, it's 6. I'm sorry. It's 6. It still feels big.
But still, 6 years?
What year is it?
Good Lord. Don't ever leave. You're amazing. Folks, if you want Megan to stay and be part of Birken Law for another 6 years, you're going to need to go rate this podcast and share it with a friend because Megan needs to be motivated to stay here so we can have our 10-year anniversary. So please rate it with a 5-star. It really does help me out. If you have a question or a story to share, maybe something about scaling at your organization, we would love to hear from you. Send me a note online, leave a voice memo by calling 612-208-9120. Thanks, y'all.
Bye.